I think tasteful is a word that many churches could implement for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
There's a lot of tasteless.
Tasteless.
We need more
think.
tasteful. Yeah, just think.
Just think a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's challenging. A lot of times those that are involved in tech, there's the technology side of the brain and there's the artistic side of the brain. And sometimes the more technology side people will be focused on graphics when you need more of the artistic side doing that. So I think it's just realizing you have a giant canvas up there. You got to be careful what you're putting on it.
You guys
Let it be.
You didn't sing much out of the old Redback hymnal, did you?
Kind of. A little bit.
Yeah?
Yeah. We church top a lot, but that's for another podcast.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah, only did that once.
Yeah, that's right. Well, speaking of podcasts, welcome to the MxU Podcast. We're here today with Corey Miller, who is the production director at Grace Church, which is my home church in Greenville, South Carolina, and Chad Rose from ReveLux. He's the CEO and founder of ReveLux. Both of these guys have been on the MxU Podcast before, but not together. There's a reason that we're together today, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then we also got Nate Ellis, who is our social media manager here at MxU. Mm-hmm. He is here today in the co-host seat, filling in for Spencer, because Spencer's wife had their third child last night in the middle of the night. Yeah. And so, needless to say, he was unable to be with us today. So thanks for pinch hitting for him and being with us today. We're excited to hear from you because Nate is not only a social media manager, but he's also a local church pastor. And
That's
so
right.
you have some perspective from that side too, which is cool.
I do. Yeah.
But first, I kind of need to shout out the changes to the MxU Podcast set. I mean, the guys worked hard last week putting this together. We have our backlit snare drum, which I think is awesome. We've got our Shure Vocal Master mixing console, which is one of the first mixers anybody ever used to mix microphones through a PA. We've got our Bell & Howell projector. So it's like all these old school kind of production pieces.
Throwbacks just for you, Jeff.
I love it. I love the throwbacks. I love the AM/FM radio.
Is that what that is?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Well, the one problem, though, is that there are a lot of Tennessee mugs.
Yeah.
I know we're in Knoxville. I know you're wearing a Vols hat.
Yep.
Kind of upside down backwards.
Go Vols.
Yeah.
It's in. It's
I
on,
know
it's on trend
in.
right now.
It is trend, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But we need to update. I don't want to say upgrade, but we're going to add to the sort of college memorabilia with some maybe other schools that need to be represented.
Definitely none others from the SEC. That's for sure.
No, and none others from the Big Ten except one.
Yeah.
Which will be Michigan.
That's fair.
Anyway, we're excited you guys are here today.
Yep.
The reason that you're both here, though, is because you and the team from Grace, all the production folks from Grace, are here to kind of learn various things. But one of the things is to learn about ReveLux LED and its processors, because we're putting in a ReveLux LED
That's right.
at Grace at one of the campuses.
Yeah, this will be our first time taking out a large projector screen and be a first kind of swing at doing some LED product for us. So it's been fun. A bunch of our guys are kind of younger and really experienced well in our context, but this was kind of their first time today actually getting hands-on with some of the products. So it was really, really beneficial for them to actually come in here and actually take some things apart and actually get their hands on some things. So it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. And you've been working directly with Chad in this project, Chad and Brad from ReveLux.
Yeah.
So we're gonna dig deeper into that process and maybe why, because we've talked before about how Grace isn't necessarily focused on high level production.
That's right.
But we want to talk about what the decision-making process was like and kind of why we're going to LED and maybe if churches even need to do LED. So that'll be a conversation for later in the podcast. But first, we want to do our weekly service review.
Yeah. Mixed review with Jeff. We need a jangle.
Yeah, maybe a little sound effect.
Yeah, a little something there for mixed review with Jeff.
Yeah. Well, it's not just me. It's everybody.
Yeah, with us now.
Yeah.
Mixed review with us. Doesn't have the quite same ring to it, but
No.
yeah.
We talked about turn up for MxU, but maybe that'll stick. I'm not sure. We'll see.
We could do better.
Yeah. Well,
We could do better.
anyway, this comes from, speaking of Big Ten, this comes from one church in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
Now, it's hard for me to even utter the words Columbus, Ohio, because of my affinity for Michigan, and that other school from Ohio is in Columbus. No, don't even do it.
The other school.
No,
The other school.
the other school. No, but we're going to be in Columbus actually next week for our upcoming MxU pop-up.
Yeah.
And so this church reached out. They're going to be at the Columbus pop-up, but they wanted us to kind of take a listen to this because they have a very diverse congregation, diverse community. And so they're kind of trying to blend modern worship and gospel, and they just have kind of a bit of a mix of styles in their services. So they wanted us to kind of listen to their broadcast mix. So this is through an Avantis console, and it is a dedicated broadcast mix. So it's not coming from front of house. And so we're just going to take a listen to 2 sections of a song and make some comments. So let's take a listen.
In the morning, when His mercies are new. See, in the evening, when the day is done. And in the middle, when my soul needs reminding, you're still good. Hallelujah. Yes, Lord. You're so good. In the waiting, when my heart is confused. And in the trusting, when my hope is lost. And in the harvest, when I'm holding the promise. See, you're still good. Hallelujah. You're so good. It's these simple words. After all of these years, you're still good.
Okay, good. So now we're going to go to a section later in the song where we have more of the kind of gang vocals. I think they're going for kind of a choir kind of feel, and the full band will be in. So we'll get to hear kind of a contrast to that down section with kind of a more pronounced full band feel.
There's no boundaries to no eyes have seen. Oh, come on, church. Ears have heard. You're not done. From every generation to generation. There's no boundaries to no eyes have seen. No ears have heard. You're not done. Can we take it up for a second? From generation to generation. There's no boundaries. Somebody say, no eyes have seen. No ears have heard. You're not done. He's not done. He's not generation to generation. There's no boundaries to no eyes have seen. No ears have heard. He's not done. Say, you're not done. You're not done yet. You're not done yet. It ain't over. You're not done yet. Till God says it's over. You're not done yet. Till God says it's over. You're not done yet. It ain't over. You're not done yet. It's still working. It's still moving. It's still working. You're not done yet. Say
Some good instrumentation right there.
That's
Yeah,
some
a lot
really
going
great
on.
vocals too.
Yeah.
So first thoughts, any comments?
I like. Oh, good.
You go, Corey.
Yeah, I like to see just the as the song was progressively just building, and you kept seeing this just continuous. Everything was kind of changing as the music was building. The camera shots were getting faster and faster. More. It just really kept the energy of watching this. Even though I'm watching this on a monitor and some near fields, I felt a lot of good energy from that just by I think just a lot of just seeing the different camera shots and seeing the different ways that even you saw lighting change just a little, not anything that was over the top or anything like that. But it was, we kind of, as the music was progressing and building, we also saw a lot of other changes happening that were progressively building at the same rate. So it was really, no part of it was overpowering any other part of it. I didn't really notice the lighting until I started looking for it. I didn't notice the camera shots until I started paying attention to it. So none of those things were distracting. It all just kind of came together really well. And you saw each element come together in a really cool way to kind of build us through that moment. That was pretty cool.
Chad, any thoughts?
Yeah, it was very engaging. Just felt drawn into it,
Yeah.
and just wanted to join in and be a part of it. And that's hard to do, online to get that feeling of being there,
Yeah.
through the video. And you did a great job with it. There's a lot going on in that mix. A lot of instruments, a lot of different guitar parts and keyboards and
Yeah.
drums and vocals, and there's a lot there. It's very challenging to make it all work together, and
Yeah.
I thought it was handled well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I loved in the first clip, I loved the intimacy of the vocal. I felt like, the presence of the vocal was great, and obviously he's a good leader, and he's delivering the song really well. And then in the second half, when it's building, obviously that's a long build, right? You've got drums that are building, you've got vocals that are in one range, and they go to the inversion halfway through to kind of lift. The soprano goes up higher, so it's like there's a lift in energy, and the drums are continuing to build. So it's a real kind of long ramp to get to that release. And I felt like vocally, I mean, it was really engaging. Like I was getting into it, and so that part of it was great. I think when there's so much going on musically, instrumentally, like I feel like the drums felt great, the vocals felt great, like the parts were awesome. I felt like the rest of the band, it was a little hard to distinguish. There was a camera shot of a lead guitar player who was playing a lead line, and I didn't hear it, but I heard the B3, which was great. So it's like, I get what they're going for. They're trying to get to this gospel thing,
Right.
which is a lot of vocals, a lot of drums, B3. I felt like maybe the pads were taken over just a little bit. Like I could have used a little more clarity maybe from the guitars.
Yeah.
And maybe a way to do that would be to maybe sort of as the song goes, because the pads are so important in the beginning of the song, maybe bring those down a little so that later in the song, the guitars can kind of drive a little bit more of that build with the band. But man, I think some churches for their broadcast mix try to, and I've recommended it sometimes, to kind of overdo it on the effects a little bit, just to try to create space in the broadcast. But for that gospel approach, I think a little drier is a little better. So I think they've achieved that well. It's like, especially with such good singers, like you don't need them swimming in reverb, because their voices themselves don't need that kind of help that more effects could give. So, man, kudos to them.
Great job.
I think one thing that I noticed, and it was a little bit of the lighting during that second section of the build, where it matched what the band was doing, but it was almost a little bit distracting of like, I started paying attention to the lights. And again, it could be philosophy, but like, I don't necessarily want to focus on the lights. Like it can be there to support, but if I'm, paying attention to, strobe here, strobe there, it's like, what purpose is it serving? And so, I mean, it was all really great, and it was a very worshipful moment, and you could feel that. We all have said that. But there were a couple times where I was like, oh, why are lights doing this?
Yeah. And maybe you didn't feel that way if you're in the room.
Yeah,
because
totally.
we're watching, especially a wide shot. Like it's good to establish a wide shot for somebody watching online.
Yeah.
But then you're watching sort of, it's like you're sitting outside of the room at that point, and you're watching the whole room. Instead of that person on the third row with her hands raised, she might not even see the lights. So it's a balance, right? It's like, how are we, who am I to judge at that point? Totally. But it is like when you're watching online and you see that wide shot, it's like do I really need to see the ballyhoo? Like, So it's a tough balance, but I'm glad that they're paying attention to it. It felt really intentional. Like you said, Corey, the hits and the build and all the changes that were being made seem to be very intentional. So,
Yeah.
but I'd love to be there in person because
Oh,
it sounds
man.
like they've got it going on.
Wow. Yeah. There was I could in the middle of in that first section, there was the guitar player. Some of the parts he was playing were sick.
Yeah.
It was like, that's a good band.
And I love seeing how engaged the audience was. Like you could tell that the vibe in the room was, okay, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah.
So One Church in Columbus, thanks for sending that to us. And we'll see you next week at the pop-up, which will be before this podcast is released. So it'll be kind of a little bit of an Inception thing going on. But
Continuum. Yes. And if you have submissions, you're listening or watching, you can email us at support@getmxu.com or DM us on Instagram, and we'll add it to the list.
Yeah. We want to see as many churches deal as we can because we love seeing that the church, and that's the other thing that these remind me of, is that the church is alive and well in a lot of places, and people are engaged, people are being drawn to Jesus, people are being moved to take steps toward what God has for them, and this is another example of what that looks like. So it's great.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow, when this podcast airs in real time, we're releasing a course that you filmed.
That's right.
Mixing with the Waves LV1 console.
Yeah.
And I think we have a clip and a preview we want to show that, and then we can go around the horn because at Grace, right? Y'all use the LV1.
We do.
So why don't we watch this preview of the LV1?
Hey everybody, I'm so glad you joined me for this course, all about unpacking how I approach mixing on LV1. So we've got some Chris Tomlin tracks that we're going to use as a reference today, and I'm going to show you all about my plugin processing, some of my routing, group assignments and group processing, as well as how I handle effects, and other things about my approach to mixing with LV1. I hope that you'll be able to see the ultimate flexibility and capabilities that this plug-in-based console has to offer. Because we can use things that are outside of a normal sort of channel strip approach to a conventional console, you'll be able to see how applying different kinds of plugins on the same kinds of channels can really build an effective and impactful mix. So we are going to make these presets available, so you'll be able to take home all of my plugin presets and my channel presets for every one of these channels. So click the link in the description. We're not going to go necessarily channel by channel and unpack everything by soloing in place, because we don't really do that in a live context. We don't have the opportunity to solo the snare drum in the middle of our worship set. So I don't want to do that here. I want to talk about how we can use the sound of our drums in combination with the rest of our band to make things that are effective and cohesive. We will talk about some approaches to individual inputs, but really it's about creating a mix as a whole. So I really hope that you enjoy this process. I can't wait to dig in, so let's do it.
So that was actually really fun for me to film, and I can't wait for people to engage with that course. There are actually two courses. One is just on LV1 in general and the basics and how to set up the hardware and all that and what the software does. But then this one for tomorrow is actually mixing on the LV1 platform. And so we made the decision, 2 years ago now, to upgrade to LV1 at our main campus from the
Midas
M32. And so let's talk for a minute about kind of why the upgrade was needed in the first place, and then some of the process of why we ended up choosing LV1.
Yeah, I think we initially just ran into an issue of I/O with M32. It was, sonically it was doing what we needed it to do. It was volunteer friendly, which was definitely a high value for us. We really, at all of our other locations, really the deciding factor to switch away from an M32 would be just I/O. So we ran into that just pretty quickly. Not necessarily so much on just a typical Sunday morning, but for special events that we would have and other larger gatherings we would have, where maybe a couple campuses would come together. Just needed some more inputs, and we were very limited on the output side of things too, we're just limited to, mono in-ear mixes for our guys too with that. So, just made a decision to start looking around and did a good bit of shopping around. Talked to a lot of different folks, many who used LV1, many who used Avantis, a few other consoles. For us, it really did come down to the Avantis or the LV1, and just after some time playing around with both and just kind of looking at the pros and cons of each, and having a couple.
And then Jeff Sandstrom joined the church.
Yeah, did Jeff enter the chat, and then I guess that decision was made at that point. But no, it was. I think we had a lot of great information from a lot of different people, different sources, and folks who had great things to say, folks who gave us some critical things to think about as we move forward as well. So it was really just kind of a group decision on a couple of folks on our staff, and Jeff was a great resource for that. But yeah, we made a decision to go ahead and pull that, and got it in just before Christmas 2 years ago. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's been great. I think, sometimes people are intimidated by it because they think, well, this will be hard for my volunteers because it's so different from a sort of what people think of as a traditional console, but it's really not. And I think our volunteers have actually become much better mixers.
Absolutely.
Because of that form factor and format. I think we have a few volunteers who are just crushing it on LV1, and it's been really cool to see. So, I really hope this course is helpful to people who are thinking about LV1 or use LV1 already. You'll get an email tomorrow with the course release, and you'll see a preview of it on all of our social media platforms. So make sure to check it out because I think, once you kind of see how you interact with it and see how the mixer actually works, it's a really viable option for a lot of people. So it's cool.
It's been a great fit for us. We're looking forward to rolling out a few other campuses in the future. So
yeah, it's good. Well, and that's not to say that there's anything wrong with the other platforms.
Absolutely.
Avantis, I think, is a great platform. The Allen Heath ecosystem is awesome. Yeah. I just think for us, where we were at the time, the form factor, the portability, the fact that we could utilize just so many plugins and just the way it sounds, especially the ears. Like the band guys in the first rehearsal, they were like, what just happened? Not just because they were stereo, but they were stereo and the inputs sounded so much better.
Yeah,
so
nothing was even panned at that point. I think just right out of the box, they could tell us the difference.
Wow.
So.
So
it was great.
it's a really good platform, and we're excited to help Waves talk about it. So
yeah. And Corey, I know you said your church, maybe production isn't the highest value, but like even as you're talking about ReveLux and these things, like how do you maybe first a little bit of context of your church, and then just like kind of the heart mission and just like talk about your church a little bit.
Yeah, I think even just from the early days, it's a church that was planted in the mid-90s, was portable for a long time, got one campus into a permanent facility, tons of renovations, new buildings kind of built on that campus. Multi-site was just kind of starting to be a thing, and we kind of just slowly through the late 90s, early 2000s, and even up until just probably I guess 5 years ago or so when we launched our 10th campus. The value always was to be an environment where I guess the language you would hear is usually like that we're an equipping church. We're not necessarily focused on some things that other churches may be that are trying to draw people in a different way. The model of discipleship first has really been a priority for us from day one. And I think even when you're looking at the way that resources are used, financially, how are we spending our money? We really want to put that as much as possible of an emphasis on discipling our people, equipping our people, having them own the cause of what we're trying to do in our communities as a church. And just giving those folks resources as much as possible. So things like things like an LV1 or a video wall. Obviously these are tools that we're using in our weekend services. Not necessarily to attract a crowd or to draw a crowd. I mean, we're using them to essentially just be tools to serve the overall mission and vision of what we're trying to do. That mission being first, not necessarily anything that we may want to try to do to attract new people. I mean, there's never been really emphasis on growing a church. It's just been an emphasis on how can we take this group of people that we do have and give them and equip them with the resources that they need to go out into their communities and do the things that we're trying to do as a church. So that really, when you start having conversations about spending money on consoles and spending money on video walls, it's not a very complicated conversation for us. We're going to get what we need to do, but we're not going to really shoot for the stars. I mean, there's going to be lots of folks that would look at our budget for 10 campuses, and it would probably have that just for one location. And that's okay. I think we're comfortable with that. We're okay with that. The value of having our volunteers and our people actually owning the cause of what we're doing, keeping the entry points into the production environment as simple as possible, so they're not as intimidated by coming in and serving. We create that expectation. You're going to be part of our church. We expect you to come and serve. So we want to make sure we're creating as many opportunities as possible. So when we're making decisions on equipment, things like that, that's really the first thing we're looking for is how can we best use the resources we do have available to get what we need that does the job, but also allows for as much resources as possible to go out into the other areas of ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a volunteer at the church, I will say, the focus on volunteers is way up in the mix for you and the staff team.
Absolutely.
It's like, how can we leverage people who are willing to serve in the most effective and efficient way so that when they come and give their time, they actually feel like they're able to do a good job and, able to contribute to the greater mission. Absolutely. I think, y'all do a great job of tying the mission of Grace Church to the sort of execution of what the volunteer needs to do. So whether that's sitting behind a sound console on Sunday morning, or whether it's, running sound or, graphics for a Tuesday night recovery ministry event or a student event or, an outside event that somebody from the community is coming to use the church for, supporting, whatever, needy mothers or homeless or whatever it might be. It's like there's a strategy for the volunteers that's built around giving them buy-in as well. So
as much as possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's very cool.
Yeah. And so I think it when it comes to how we think about our staff, think about their interaction with our volunteers, we really don't necessarily look to hire technical experts. We look to hire people who are maybe already a part of our church, maybe pretty young, trying to figure out what they really want to do in life, give them opportunities to just come in and just serve our people in a kind of a unique way, not necessarily put the expectation on them that they have to be some great technical expert, but just your first priority needs to be just caring for these people, these volunteers that are showing up each week. So there's a Patrick Lencioni quote of, not using the people to do the work, but use the work to develop the people. Yeah. It's kind of really sort of driven a lot of the way we kind of think about how our staff necessarily interacts. And it also gives us a great advantage where we're not necessarily out there looking for someone who's a high capacity engineer to come in and run sound on a Sunday.
They'll take anybody.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We're looking for, someone who's a middle school teacher, someone who's, we've got guys that are mechanics, that are school teachers, plumbers. We've got just people that do it all, which I'm sure, most churches do as well. But having that freedom for our folks to not necessarily, who are on our staff, not necessarily feel the weight of having to have this technical knowledge that can just be completely overwhelming. We just try to, as much as possible, narrow that focus down to just caring for our people. And there's technical stuff we'll do during the week, and there's things we'll have to figure out along the way. But we really want to make sure we're doing everything we can to care for our people and make that be the emphasis of what we're working on.
Speaking of technical experts, we do have Chad here.
That's right.
And he is the technical expert around our LED upgrade.
That's right.
So let's talk for a minute about that transition. So we have projectors in the room with screens that are working.
Yep.
So why the upgrade? Like what was the thought process in going? Yeah. Was it like just expected lifespan of the current equipment? Why not do more projectors? Like, how were you thinking about that with you and leadership?
Yeah, I think it originally started with someone, just a couple folks at the individual campus. We've had the same sort of backdrop for a long time. They were getting some different designs put together, some different quotes, and we were just getting some crazy numbers, big 6-figure numbers to redo just this back wall of the stage. And we interjected pretty quickly there to say that, hey, I think for a fraction of what you guys are actually looking at doing now, we actually could make something that would not just be one look that gets repeated over and over again, but something that could actually create a little bit different environment, whatever environment we want to create, whether it be a weekend service or a student ministry event or wherever else. In the past, when there's different events in that space, we have to kind of bring in extra lighting. We got to bring in extra, stage props, do different things. But I guess the strategy really was to try to figure out how could we actually utilize this space, make it as flexible as possible. But then also what we've had just has been there for a very long time and was due for a change. So on the actual tech side of it, we did notice that we've got laser projectors at a lot of our locations that are on the back half of their life cycle. So we knew that we needed to go ahead and start establishing a relationship now with some sort of LED vendor. And we didn't necessarily want to just necessarily go out and just buy the cheapest thing we could find, or go buy something off the shelf here, go here for each individual campus as we move forward. But we wanted to establish a relationship now with somebody that can grow with us and move forward with us as we expand this, not just one campus, but eventually all of them as these projectors and things start to age out a little bit. So I think the relationship building now was really the main focus, and ReveLux has been great with that. So it's been a great experience.
If not, we could talk it out right now. That would make for a great
little Matthew 18 moment.
Hey, you want to talk this out a little bit? Or
I'll go to you first.
Yeah. You didn't return his text.
Sorry.
That's what he told me off camera. And so
no, it's been a privilege to work with you guys and just to partner alongside what you're doing. And we work with a wide variety of churches. I mean, we've had everything from we want the best and the greatest to, churches that, we only have this much money. What can we do for that? There's a wide range out there. And I think one of the common misconceptions is LED wall equals a lot of money. And I think that's just because it has been traditionally over time, LED walls have been pretty expensive, but we've seen that number come down and be more accessible. And the difference between projection and LED is kind of changing, and what I love about offering the LED for you guys is just the flexibility. You can change what people are seeing from song to song, or even in that video we watched earlier, there was an LED wall there, and that really adds to the worship. The way that you can not just have static text but dynamic things on the screen. Sure. And I'm excited to get it in there for you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what would you say to a church who's trying to decide, do we need an LED wall? There's a lot of churches who want an LED wall maybe, but it's
a lot of pastors.
Yeah. So what's, how do you define, when is it the best choice?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, do you need an LED wall? Do you need a projector? Do you need a sound console? Do you need speakers? We need all of it, right, to have church with the way we do it these days. We need all this technology. The question really is, where are your projectors at in their life cycle? You're looking at, some that are aging out. LED is becoming the technology of choice, for image display in houses of worship. We're at that point price-wise where it makes good stewardship sense to invest in LED over projection just because of the lifespan. I mean, you can get 100,000 hours out of an LED wall. That's before it hits 50% brightness. So, I mean, just the time that you can get out of an LED wall is pretty extensive. When you compare that to replacing projectors, it used to be the lamp conversation. There's still a lot of lamp projectors out there where people are spending a lot of money on lamps every year to replace them. Now with lasers, it's a little bit different, but still just the lifespan. Also, the quality of the image is so much better, and what you can do with it, compared to projection, is it's just superior. So do you need an LED wall? No. Do you need an LV1 or versus a Midas? I don't, those are just questions that I think you just have to look at stewardship wise, and decide if it works with your ministry approach and what you're trying to do with your production. I think if you need to show video in your services and have lyrics on the wall, and if video is a part of what you're doing, even a small part, an LED wall is going to be the best way to present that. Is my perspective.
That's good.
So, yeah.
So let's take just a couple minutes that we have left and give the people who are using LED maybe just like your top 3 just best practices, because I know people deal with, rolling from their video wall on their camera shots, or they deal with maybe their cameras are in 24, the wall's at 60. Like how's that differential gonna make a difference? And other things like moire and distance considerations and all those things that people struggle with. Just give us a quick list of maybe some top things to think about.
Yeah, I'd say that one of the number one things I see is just brightness levels of LED. I call it the new LED syndrome, but often we put screens in churches for the first time, they want to crank those things up. And it's like, I got this.
Brighter's better, right?
Brighter's
God
better.
said, let there be light.
Yeah, and they love it. It's so bright. And then you watch their stream, and it's like this halo, it doesn't.
They've never had more backlight in their
right,
lives.
yeah. It's just, you can't see the facial features. So I think just being cognizant of, you have a lot of light behind the people on the stage when when it's a background, so you want to make sure that you're not, running it too hot. That's really important. I think getting your key talent, which would be worship leader or pastor, you want them away from the screen. You don't want them right up on it, because you are going to have conflict with moire, because it's a bunch of dots. As much as it's an LED screen, if your pastor was wearing a checkered shirt, on camera, you're going to see the moire. It's not just moire is not just an LED screen problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, just making sure you're off the screen. Another one to be aware of what content you're putting on it. Just because you have an LED screen, I would say now that if you have an LED screen, you have to be aware of what you're putting on it. You don't want to just throw anything up there. We've seen it all. We have a church where the guy running Pro Presenter was big into hunting. He liked to take pictures, and
Oh no.
somehow those pictures made it up on the screen one Sunday, as a backdrop.
Okay. Well,
So it's powerful. You can.
hopefully it's not a deer right before harvest time. Nate's imagining what might be on
the
the
sermon
wall.
illustration.
Right. And the pastor didn't know what was happening. So there's a lot of power there with that LED screen. You got to be careful with it.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
I would say subtle is better. Moving backgrounds are not always moving. They're a little too moving sometimes. Like static images on LED can be very tasteful, or slow movement, not like rapid movement can be a little too much. So I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, great power, great responsibility.
I think tasteful is a word that many churches could implement for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
There's a lot of tasteless.
Tasteless.
I think we need more
think.
tasteful. Yeah, just think.
Just think a little bit.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's challenging. A lot of times those that are involved in tech, there's the technology side of the brain and there's the artistic side of the brain. And sometimes the more technology side people will be focused on graphics when you need more of the artistic side doing that. So I think it's just realizing you have a giant canvas up there. You got to be careful what you're putting on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and audience too. It's like, especially if you have an older church, it's like if you're throwing fast images on there, it's just gonna be discombobulating, you know? And so some of it is like, hey, like just be mindful of who your congregation is, and when it's a youth rally or youth group, like go nuts. But it's like if it's Sunday morning, like know what the job is and what the vision of your church is, and let that be the thing that guides your background choices. And so
Yeah, because we're about to have a 15-foot tall, 25-foot wide canvas behind the band that's never been there before.
Never. Yeah.
So it could be quite jarring
Yeah.
if it's just flash and trash the
Tiptoe
whole
our way
time.
through this. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think dynamics, just like in music and in sound, dynamics are a big part of worship, right? The soft part it builds and it changes. Visually, you have visual dynamics, and an LED wall can offer you that opportunity to build with a song or change, add to a moment in a service, and then turn the thing off, go black, and that's a whole different dynamic too. So just being aware of those visual dynamics and how powerful they can be.
Dynamic range is important.
Sure is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this has been a great conversation. I think, I've learned a lot. I'm so excited to be able to have my own church here at MxU HQ, learning together and getting better together. Chad, thanks for being a part of this podcast, but also, today as part of helping us learn better how to use the product and just implement it in the best way possible. Nate, you're the best, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Your knee
pitch
rover
shooter.
is sitting over here ready for your transportation across the office.
It is.
Knee tore his Achilles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just had surgery a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100% quite yet.
Nope. But I'm rolling around.
How excited
rolling
are you
around.
right now
Rocking
for
and
physical
rolling.
therapy?
Oh, I mean, you just got to do it.
Is your whole lower leg going to be totally atrophied?
Yeah. Which, for those listening or watching, I tore my left Achilles 2 years ago, and about 3 weeks ago, I tore my right Achilles, and so, but now the atrophy will be even.
Oh, there
and
you
so
go.
Yeah,
it's
balance.
just gotta think positively when you tear 2 Achilles in 2 years.
Life in balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the MxU podcast. We can't wait to see you next time. In the meantime, have a great time, and we'll see you then.
That's right.